let's talk about common misconceptions about cybersecurity that I see all the time. I talk to companies, we go in, we tell them about how important it is to have a good cybersecurity policy, not only on the organizational standpoint, but also on the technology standpoint. And a lot of times I get that we're too small, nobody's looking at us. Or they say, we have a lot of money invested on our tools and we feel like we're secure. And my answer to that is, well, Google and the government, they spend billions and billions of dollars, and yet you see in the news all over the place how these huge companies get hacked. So what makes you think that your $50,000, your $100,000, heck, your $1 million investment is going to make you more secure and better than these organizations who are spending billions? They are, a lot of times, they think that just because they met some kind of industry regulation one time, that's enough to keep them safe. They talk to us about we only need to secure our internet-facing applications. Those are the ones our customers see. So we're not really concerned about the back end. Or a big one is we have an IT department; they take care of it. Another misconception is our passwords are strong enough. We have a good password protection policy, and that's all we need. So not a problem. Or cyber threats only come from external actors. And we don't really have anything out there that people are looking for. The other thing is we keep our Wi-Fi network secure, so we should be okay. Or we have invested in tools and we know immediately if a security breach occurs, so we will go ahead and we're prepared for whatever comes our way. And a big one today is a lot of people, especially people working from home today, are bringing their own devices. Now, what that has done is that has literally opened up a whole new front for us in IT that are managing infrastructure and security. Now we have to worry about your infrastructure at your house, because odds are you're either VPNing into the office or you're accessing office resources. And now I have to worry about your home computer or your home network and who else is there and how is that going to affect our networks, our work networks as you work from home. Next. Okay, let's talk about who's a target. I can throw a lot of statistics at you, which are well known and they're all over the news. And I invite everybody to look at this, but the reality is that everybody is a target. There's no such thing as I'm too big, I'm too small. No, everybody's a target. You can think of cyber criminals as if you were in a neighborhood of houses and you have a $1 million homes and a combination of smaller houses and apartment complexes, and I'm going down the road looking for places to hit, casing the neighborhood. I'm basically just looking to see who leaves the door open. It's the same thing with cyber criminals. Every company's connected to the internet. Every company has access to resources, data. We know that you have accounting systems. We know you have data for your clients, and we know you're accessing cloud resources. So a lot of times, what cyber criminals do is they will just sit there and scan whole blocks of internet IP addresses and look to see what's open. Basically, what doors come in and say, hey, I'm a service and I'm listening. And from there, they can go ahead and pick their target. So it's not like they're going through Google and just choosing a company. They're literally scanning millions and millions of IP addresses, millions and millions of systems, and then seeing who's answering and then developing attack vectors based on who's open. And they don't care if you're a 5-person employee company or 500 employee company. They just saw an open door, and now they're going to go ahead and try to attack from there. So it's a big misconception out there that if you're small, that you're protected just because you're small, or that you're not a target. if you have data, you're a target, especially for ransomware today. And Heather will go into detail later on, but I can just tell you that there's a lot of money in this, and it's a numbers game. So the more people they can get their systems infected, the better they can, the more money they can make. The other thing is that we're seeing is a lot of companies are being targeted because they have computer systems and they're being hijacked. I would love to hijack those computer systems as a bad guy to try to mine crypto. That's been a big one these days. So not like I'm doing anything malicious, but I have 500 computer or 50 computers or whatever, and I can become a part of a botnet that's mining crypto. And now here I am hijacking your computers and using your electricity, making tons of money mining crypto and not doing anything, to announce myself that you're there. And what happens is you get your electric bill and you see that it's through the roof. You can't figure out why. So those are the kind of things that you see out there. And again, it doesn't matter how big you are. It just matters that you have resources that I can use to do the things that I want to do. Okay, next. All right. Let's talk about technology and some of the things that we can do to protect ourselves. It's not just the tech, it's also the training and your processes. And it starts with having good training. Do you train your users? Do you have a well-oiled user base that has been told, hey, this is how you protect yourself against phishing attack. This is what you do. This is how you access computer properly. Do you have the proper training manuals? Do you have the policies and procedures to help your people and to make sure that as new employees come in, they know and they understand what the policies and procedures are for your company? Do you have good backup and disaster recovery plan? I can tell you right now that the worst time to come up with a solution to a problem is when you're dealing with the problem, especially when it comes to disaster recovery. It's always good to already have a plan in place so if this happens, this is the steps we're going to take. If this other issue happens, if we get infected with crypto, here's our plan. If we get a problem that takes our network down, here's our plan. You got to have a good network and data infrastructure. So the technology you're using for switches, is it enterprise level technology that you can use to look at where the traffic goes in and out of your network? Or did you implement you have no idea how many times we go to companies that are actually dealing with serious data and and they have a serious business, yet they're literally behind a router that you can go pick up at Home Depot, or not even Home Depot, at the Best Buy, that's normally being used for gaming. Yet that's what's protecting a lot of these companies. So you got to make sure you invest in the right infrastructure. Do you implement data encryption? So if you have computers and laptops, especially the things that people are taking home, and somebody loses a laptop, they have sensitive data there or important data that affects your company, is the laptop encrypted? And do you have that as a corporate policy, not just individual computers here and there, but as an actual policy? Do you implement multi-factor authentication on your important systems? So every industry has their software, as well as other software that everybody uses, such as Office 365 and a lot of the cloud businesses. But we know that a lot of manufacturers, they have software that runs their industry, their stuff, accounting software. And here in the managed services, we use things like ConnectWise. That's the software we use to organize ourselves. Do you implement multi-factor authentication across all of your software suite that runs your business? Do you use strong passwords? It's not just implementing the old password with somewhat of a complexity. Do you, for example, use passphrases? Do you have a password management system such as LastPass or OnePass to manage the thousands of passwords or hundreds of passwords in your organization, therefore making sure you don't use the same password for everything? That's a big problem. Do you do you have a managed threat response system that allows your antivirus and your endpoint protection systems to actually announce and tell somebody, hey, there is a problem. And if there's somebody in the other end, for example, you get a virus, you get an issue, is there somebody there that is actually going to respond to this thing? So you need to have all of those technologies working together and processes to make sure that your business is properly protected against cyber threats. Okay, the next. Okay, CTMS, the nice thing about what we did as a managed service provider, not only did we went ahead and implemented all of these technologies ourselves, but we created a suite of products to make sure that we fit every budget, and we go ahead and offer that to our clients. Our CTMS Total Secure package, as you can see, has includes all of our suite of products to make sure that we can go back to that circular chart that I showed you on the previous slide, and we cover everything. So I encourage everybody to look at our suite of products, and we can always go ahead and talk about which one fits your budget and which one is best for your organization. Next. Okay. Why is that important? To make sure that you look at this. There's been a huge increase in cybercrime. We all hear the news. We've all seen the headlines. It's in the news all the time. So we know that bad actors and cyber threats are increasing. They're not going down. So this is important. We have a rise on Internet of Things devices. People bringing in watches, phones, all kinds of devices now are using the internet. Heck, cars. There's millions, and there's more coming. So you're going to have a lot of things coming into your network that you're going to have to worry about securing. And it could save you a lot of money. I can tell you that if you don't take this seriously and you happen to be a target for one of these attacks, it could cost you a lot of money. It could also ruin your company's reputation. I can tell you, if you get attacked and you actually have a breach that actually got client data or your customer data, you have a responsibility to announce that to your customers. And I can tell you, it will be embarrassing. And a lot of times it leads to company loss of business. And there are well-documented cases of companies going out of business because they got attacked. And I know that there's cyber insurance today, but I can tell you that a lot of companies will not insure you if we go back to that circular chart. If you don't meet all the criteria for them to insure you, they will not insure you. And now also at the end is compliance and regulations. If you are part of an industry that actually is requiring you to be compliant, you will need to take this seriously. All right, so at this point, I cover everything that I wanted to cover on my end. I am now going to turn it over to Heather from Sophos. They have been a great partner in our technology. For our technology, we have installed a good install base of Sophos throughout a lot of our clients, and it's growing. And I am really happy to have her here as a partner. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Heather, and she's going to let us know about ransomware.
Thank you, Enrique. And we are pleased and very thankful to have you as a wonderful partner. So can everybody hear me? Just do a quick sound check. I will take that as a yes, and Elise, you can move to the next slide. Wonderful. So let's start off just trying to educate everybody, because as Enrique said, cybersecurity and ransomware affects everybody. So let's start by doing a quick reality check. The United States suffered 65,000 ransomware attacks last year. That equates to over 7 attacks per hour. And we all know that it's only growing and getting worse. It used to be seen as a nuance, and now it is a national security problem. Cyber criminals are targeting key parts of the country's infrastructure everywhere. Doesn't matter if it's at the enterprise side or the small business side, or if you're an individual person. It's happening everywhere. The recent attack on Colonial Pipeline sparked panic that actually emptied many gas stations across the Southeast, if you recall. We also had another attack on JBS that raised fears about the domestic beef supply. And then probably the most recent attack was the Kyocera attack that actually attacked business infrastructures. Every single size of businesses were affected by this. So what you need to know is that stopping the attacks is very difficult. Criminals find easy, sophisticated malware in dark corners of the web in which they utilize to attack. It's a growing popularity of cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, which makes it easier for cyber criminals to evade law enforcement and finance regulators. Attacks are just getting worse because they actually work, and they work because people are actually paying the ransomware. So that's what this is actually really all about. You put malware attack puts an executive in a difficult position. First, a company loses access to its system or sensitive data. Then there are knockoff on effects that the hack becomes public and it attacks a company's share price and creates a national problem. So for instance, in the Colonial Pipeline attack, Colonial decided to pay $4.4 million to unlock its IT systems after a cyber attack forced the company to shut down a crucial fuel pipeline. Jean Jouet, who was a deputy national security advisor for combating terrorism during the George W. Bush administration, says the growing profile of targets shows how ransomware attacks are being professionalized. So it's a perfect example. It's a perfect example of getting attacked, at having the need to pay the ransomware, but what portion of your data are you actually getting back? Next slide, please. So Sophos went out, and for the last couple years, we commissioned an independent research house, Vanson Bjorn, to survey 5,400 IT decision makers across the country. We do this every year in January and February, and we did it this year. So the statistics that I'm going to go over are for January and February of 2021. And this just gives you a quick overview of those demographics. Next slide, please. So, as I stated, attackers don't tell you that even if you pay, your chances of getting all of your data back, and that's the key, all of your data back, are very slim. On average, organizations that paid ransomware only got 65% of their encrypted files back, leaving over 1/3 of their data inaccessible. 29% of respondents reported that 50% or less of their files were restored, and only 8% got their data back. So the message here is really working with CTMS and Enrique's team to fully utilize all of their solutions will help protect you so that you're not in this position, nor is Enrique in the position in his organization to help you, how do I want to say it, to basically help or put you in a position that either one of you have to pay. So it's as full protection as what you can get. Next slide, please. And you can go ahead and build this full slide out, thank you, because here's kind of how the key findings break out. And as rudimentary as it is, it's pretty interesting. 37% of respondents were hit by ransomware in the last year. 54% were hit by ransomware in the last year and said that cyber criminals succeeded in encrypting their data. And that's huge if you really think about it. 96% of the data was encrypted that they got back in most significant ransomware attacks. So the average ransomware that mid-sized organizations have paid has been $170,000, and that's in US dollars. However, you're paying $170,000, but on average, you're only getting 65% of your encrypted data being restored. So that's significant. And that's where that backup, and that's where, having multiple solutions to protect you really comes into play. Because on average, a bill for rectifying a ransomware attack, that includes downtime, that includes all your people and resources, the costs for your devices, the costs for purchasing new devices, taking devices off of line, network costs, loss opportunity, paying the ransomware, equates out to $1.9 million. It's pretty mind-blowing when you sit back and look at it. Numbers are a lot to take in, but I think that they also say a lot. We'll go to the next slide. So, Sophos Labs, it's a global network of highly skilled analysts that not only are protecting you, but they're protecting CTMS. They're protecting us from the corporate level down to the individual level. And they basically help all customers out there. And that's basically our lab internally that we have that is 24/7, constantly monitoring, emerging, looking for malware, ransomware exploits everywhere globally. So our lab and our organization has developed the synchronized security, which CTMS uses on the backbone. You would never know it, but it is that backbone. So not only do you have the people, resources, and the brains of the technology that CTMS has put in place out there, but you are also backed by a very strong global company with some of the smartest people that are out there. Next slide, please. So again, just to kind of drill this in a little bit more and to show you that ransomware continues to thrive out there in the organizations. It's a significant threat. The good news is that there has been a significant reduction from last year, from when 51% were hit. Now in 2021, so far, we've only had 37% being hit. So according to our Sophos Labs team, and according to our managed service team, which work together in conjunction in the background to protect you, attackers have moved from a larger scale, generic automated attacks to more targeted attacks that include the human operated hands-on keyboard attacking. So overall, basically what it's saying is the number of attacks are lower, but the potential for the damage of these targeted attacks are increasing. Next slide. So I think here we've talked about a lot of statistics and you can read it, and I think hopefully you're getting the message. If you can build this slide out, because I think it has a comparison with 2021 as well, you will see that this indicates the adoption of ransomware technology is paying off. You can look at the numbers yourself from 2020 to 2021. So as we see that the percentage of attackers and the data was not encrypted, but the victims were still held to ransom, and that is doubling. The amount of ransomware that you're paying is doubling. Some of the attackers are moving to extortion style attacks instead of encrypting files, meaning they steal and then they threaten to publish your data unless the ransom demand is paid. So it's requiring less effort on their part because there's no encryption or decryption needed. But adversaries often leverage the punitive fines for data breaches and their demands in further effort to make victims pay up. This is also where you're probably seeing with your insurance companies that they are requiring companies of all sizes and stature to have heightened sense of protection and security. I'm seeing it in the marketplace from all the way from education to government to commercial of all sizes, that cybersecurity insurance companies or insurance companies, your corporate insurance companies, are requiring you to have a cybersecurity policy in place. They're also then requiring you to have certain solutions in place. That is what Enrique was talking about with his solution suite of different offerings, where you have a detection and response offering and or you have a fully managed service offering that's tied together to give you the ultimate security. And hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully that's another conversation that you can have with Enrique, and as well as us. We're happy to talk to you about that. But that's really where we're seeing the biggest increase on our end in conversations from clients like yourself, needing to have an explanation of what's happening in today's world and why is my insurance company, why do they care? Because don't they just cover me? Next slide, please. So this slide and the next slide, really not too much for me to say. Basically, what you need to know is that by the time you have been attacked, the attacker has already been in your environment. You may or may not have detected it. You may have seen some kind of bot or detected something, but they're usually in there figuring out where they can get in. Next slide. And again, I love this slide because it just talks to what Enrique said about hits every single type of business with every single type of tools. And again, not going to go over this in detail. I know that they're going to send this slide deck out to you afterwards. It's interesting to look at. So as we sum it up, and you can go ahead, Elise, and build this slide out, basically what you should, as I wrap up this section, everybody here should assume you will be hit. It doesn't matter what size, who you are. Ransomware is prevalent and it is growing in every sector around the world. Make backups. Work with CTMS. Make sure you have the coverage. Make sure, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I could go in because I think this is the #1 method that organizations need to have in place, especially if you are hit, because of what we stated, that even if you pay the ransomware, you're not getting all of your data back. And basically that goes into, having 3 different copies, having copies stored offline, all of the things that we know that we should do that sometimes we do and sometimes we don't do. Again, that's where you can work with Enrique and his team, and they can help you with that. So deploying that layered protection, again, I think I've said it, I won't say more. Don't pay the ransomware. You don't have to pay the ransomware. It's easy to say, but it's far less easy to do when your organization has grounded to a halt because of an attack. So the independent of ethical considerations of paying the ransomware is an ineffective way to get your data back, is the message we're trying to convey. If you do decide to pay it, be sure to include your cost-benefit analysis and the expectation that the adversaries will restore it on average, but you're only going to get 2/3 of your files back. And really where the money is when you combine human experts and anti-ransomware technology. That's the breadth and depth of this presentation today. That's the breadth and depth of working with Enrique and the CTMS team. When you layer human experts that are the best to detect and the telltale tactics of techniques and procedures that indicate a skilled attacker is attempting to get into your environment on top of the solutions you have in place, that is where you are going to get the tightest protection, because you're going to be covered 365 days out of the year, 24/7. And having the malware recovery plan. So just some key points meant to educate you, meant to heighten the sense and the state of where we are today with everything that's happening. So please, that will close out the section of just educating the state of ransomware. And I hope it was very effective. And if you have any questions, we'd be more than happy to dig a little deeper.
Thank you for that, Heather. And now the next section, and the final section, is I wanted to go over what managed threat response is and how that, for example, differs from what we normally think of, a traditional antivirus service. And Heather, if you can help me with this section, because that is definitely the topic where I want to make sure that we educate the people who are here on what that offering is and why that's ultimately the best solution that everybody should implement in order to be as protected as possible against cyber attacks and really improve your cybersecurity from the technology side.
Most definitely.
So let's go on the next slide, Elise. Everybody knows basically the normal antivirus service, how it works, and we all have it. It's just a software that sits there, and every time you have a file or you work with a file, the antivirus service looks at it, analyzes it, and if its signature comes back and says it's good, then no problem. But if the signature matches of a known virus, then it basically flags it and says, here's the problem. And that traditionally, that was, a lot of times that was good enough back in the day. But nowadays, we have a lot of viruses that don't necessarily do a lot of ransomware and malware and worms and all kinds of different things that I can go on that are not necessarily going to do anything malicious, but they can be used to steal resources. That's being big today. And we also have what it's called zero-day attacks, which is, I just discover a new attack and nobody knows about it. There's no signature. There's no tool set freely available in the internet. And I'm using that to infect and do malicious things. On top of the normal antivirus service, there are another offerings that look at, for example, they have artificial intelligence that kind of looks at your computer behavior and what it does, and it analyzes what the normal computer pattern is, And it does a little bit better job at discovering things that are not necessarily driven by signature, but more by behavior. But the thing is, those systems basically raise an alarm. And the problem that I see is, okay, the software says, okay, I see something that's not normal here. I'm going to raise an alarm. The thing is, who's looking at that? Who in your company is looking at that? Well, you know, what's the process? So if there's an alarm, who's going to determine whether it's a false positive or not? And the next one, service up, is basically what the full MTR, what the full managed threat response does, which is basically it not only does it look at all the things that the traditional antivirus service has, not only does it have the intelligence, the artificial intelligence to look at the pattern behavior, not only does it raises the alarm and stuff like that, but it also has a team of people behind that can actually look at the threat, investigate it, make sure that it determine whether it's malicious or not, but then at the same time develop the solution and work towards a solution before it becomes a problem. That's what that leadless total protection is. And Heather, you can chime in and let me know if you have anything to add to this.
No, I think you stated that very well. The only thing that I would add into that is, again, I would highlight that that's what you're getting with the CTMS Total Secure package. So you're getting the layered security. And Elise, if you move to the next slide, these are our updated service level targets as of last week. Industry standard on creating a case for and I don't actually know, the industry standard I think is more like 5 to 10 minutes for creating a case. So when you're covered with the Total Secure package from CTMS that's layered, has our MTR service that's layered into it. So it's kind of like a white glove service. You don't know that you're getting it. So it's a huge benefit, is how I see it, is we're going to create a case. We're working in the background actively, our MTR service and the Sophos labs, create a case for an incident, for an early warning signal, whatever it may be, is going to be created in 1 to 2 minutes. The target time for our initial response, where we have closed the case, is 30 minutes. The average industry time is about 64 to 90 minutes. So we actually, in the past 3 months, have really just superseded this internally. So these are live. We always change the slide. And I think this is kind of where, everything just really, the money meets the road right here.
Okay. Thank you for that, Heather. And the two, we have, obviously our Total Secure package includes the MTR Advanced, but we have other packages that include Managed Threat Response on the standard level. And I kind of wanted to go through and give you a little bit of a visual on what the difference between the standard and the advanced is. The standard, it's a great product. It will definitely, catch the bad behavior. Let us work, allows us to work and stay ahead of making sure that we can investigate, analyze, and then create a proper response. But what I like about the advanced is that on the standard one, we at CTMS are, and we're capable of helping you and making sure that we can create a plan to make sure that we deal with whatever problem the service detects, and we can help you with that. But what I love about the advanced is that not only does it leverage my resources here at CTMS, but it also leverages all the resources at Sophos. And I can tell you that this service was very good for us in an example that we had and a new client that we had that we provisioned with the MTR Advanced service, in that you guys actually discovered as soon as we installed the product, within, I think, a day, there was already an alarm that was set, and it was actually Sophos engineers who actually called us and said, hey, we see something weird over here, and we don't know if it's a virus or not, but we want to investigate. And lo and behold, it turned out to be malware, and we were able to discover it and clean it up. And that was all because the advanced product had more eyes than what even myself on my team at CTMS can provide. And that's the big thing, that it basically leverages all the resources that I have at CTMS, but it also gives us the ability to tap into Sophos resources, which are vastly more vast than mine. So instead of having 20 people or 30 people in my team behind you, you have hundreds of people behind you, maybe more. So that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that's the big differentiator, that the standard service leverages some of the resources that Sophos has plus CTMS, but the advanced basically makes it where you have a whole team of professionals ready to go and deal with not only making sure that the problem gets fixed, but also with the solution to make sure that we get you out of the fire, and then what to do next. Heather, if you can go ahead and chime in, and if you have something to add to this.
Perfect. I was just going to help the audience just kind of fit this in. Definitely, we always lead with advanced. Where we lead with standard is for education and government, maybe some smaller hospitals, doctors' offices where it makes sense. But the whole team tends to lead with advanced because you're getting the AI built in, you're getting the extra telemetry built in. One of the key things that you'll see in the middle of the slide is you're also getting MTR connectors. And basically what that means is those are connectors that are going to connect back in, like when Enrique mentioned he uses ConnectWise. So they're connecting in to your infrastructure on your back end, so that it gives us visibility and just creates that tighter network of visibility and syncing within your environment. So those are that's the only other key point, Enrique, from the leadless threat hunting and the asset discovery that I think is important.
Okay.
You did a great job.
Thank you, Heather. And the next slide is basically, again, with the managed threat response, we choose the best way to work with the best way to work with your organization. You basically get the notification, so whenever there's an issue, you will get notified. You get the collaboration, the ability to work not only between us, Sophos, and your internal team, and we also have the ability to authorize ourselves the ability to authorize myself, my team, and Sophos to make sure that we can handle the issue, neutralize the issue, and again, in the future, making sure that we mitigate the future risk to make sure that that things like that don't happen again. What's the next slide? Next slide. Okay. And Heather, you can go ahead and since this is your product, you can go ahead and give us the lowdown on what's unique to the managed threat response advance.
So, this slide, I love it because as you're out there comparing and contrasting different solutions, these are response actions that are very unique to the MTR solution. So the solution that you would be getting from doing and adjusting configurations that actively manage a threat in real time, to isolating and identifying where the threat is coming from and being able to take it offline and isolate it so that it doesn't get throughout your entire network. We're constantly initiating and scanning the environment. So depending on whether or not you have the solution involved, depending on whether or not we're doing some automated or remote monitoring within more of a global dispersed network, that's the running of the scans that's constantly happening in the background so that we can basically block websites, protect IP addresses, and control things at the time that this is happening so that we can remediate and mitigate all of this right at once. I think that's really the gist of this. Dan Faltisco, my system engineer, is on the phone. He eloquently speaks to this. Dan, if I don't know if you can unmute yourself, if there's anything else on this slide specifically that you would like to highlight, not to put you on the spot, but he knows I do it all the time. And I'm not sure if he can.
Dan, I think I unmuted you. So if you would like to talk.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I just I didn't realize I was going to get put on the spot like that. No, there's nothing. I mean, I think the thing that Heather mentioned, and I would like to reiterate, is these response actions are taken kind of on your behalf, and then we notify you, and that means that these are proactive in your environment to stop the attack from happening and stop the attacker from propagating in your environment, right? And that's the important thing to understand. It's all about taking action when you may not be able to.
I appreciate that you actually said the right word, proactive. Yep. Proactive, and that a lot of times we deal with problems with this kind of problems from the fact that it already happened. We're in the middle of an active problem and we're dealing with it then. Being proactive makes a huge difference between being protected and being able to stop these attackers on their tracks versus already having to deal with the issue of we got encrypted, we're dealing with ransomware, we're dealing with an active infection. So the proactive nature of the product is what makes it so great. I know that we have a couple more slides to go, but we're 10 minutes away from our time, and really the rest of it is going to be more of what we've already discussed. We already have some questions in the tail that I want to handle, and I also want to make sure that we open it up for questions. So Heather, if it's okay with you,
I love it.
We can go ahead and kind of skip the rest of these slides because
Perfect.
Everybody's going to get a copy of the presentation and kind of jump into the question and answers. And Mary Smith actually sent in a question of, when employees have internet at home, what type of network should we request they set up? And it's either LAN or VPN, other. A lot of times it depends on what kind of systems you're implementing and what are they accessing from their houses. Like if you have cloud-based resources like Office 365, or you're accessing systems that already have an internet presence, a lot of times you don't need VPNs. But if you have them accessing important files, let me take, for example, if they're accessing your QuickBooks server, well, if they're going to take their machine from the office that already has the QuickBooks client installed, and they're going to access the QuickBooks files that are in your file servers, a VPN is definitely the solution to have. But there's more to consider because, for example, if you have your QuickBooks server on a remote desktop server, you still want them to have a VPN and then remote desktop to the server. You do not want to expose the remote desktop server directly on the internet. That's something that we really don't like to do. And if you do have to do it that way, you want to implement something like RDP Guard, which is a system that actually firewalls the remote desktop service if you really have to do it that way. But at the minimum, a VPN is the best way to protect your home-based computers from accessing resources within your organization, because once they come into the VPN, then you can firewall them according to your policies and procedures as if they were in the internal network. So that's usually the minimum technology that we recommend. But at the end of the day, honestly, it may require more than just VPN access, because it all depends on what kind of resources they're accessing. So that's my answer to that question. I don't know if anybody else has questions. At least can you allow people to unmute maybe so that people can ask the questions if they have them, or they can put them in the chat window.
Yeah, if you have questions, please just put them in the chat. I will unmute people here, allow your mic. So if you have questions, you should be unmuted at this point. Get everyone's mic up here.
If not, like I said, if there's no more questions, then we can go ahead and summarize. I would like to thank everybody for being in this presentation on behalf of CTMS and my partners with Sophos. I'd like to thank you all for joining this seminar. If you have any questions or if there's anything we can do from my team to help you, go ahead and reach out to Elise and my sales team, or you can go ahead and send those questions directly. I know that you should have our emails on the presentation here. We will send you contact information. I also want to thank Heather from Sophos for all the awesome information and for her to bring her team of experts to this presentation just in case. And that's all. I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to let me talk to you. And Heather, let you say your goodbye.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Enrique. We love working with you. We appreciate your business. We love all of our customers. So we really hope that this was educational. We are happy to jump on any type of call with you in the future, or talk directly to any customers in conjunction with, and on behalf of CTMS. So thank you so much. And hopefully we'll look forward to bring some more wonderful webinars.